Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1568B, and today's date is May 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is We Have Gone Full Circle, Deep State Pushes Agenda. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like things might be falling apart for Robert Mueller, because it has been revealed that Robert Mueller has had contact with the Russians. Mueller had a relationship with certain Russian oligarchs, and it might be a conflict of interest. Now, if he had a relationship, wouldn't he be considered colluding with Russia? Because in 2009, when Mueller ran the FBI, the Bureau asked Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska to spend millions of his own dollars funding an FBI-supervised operation to rescue a retired FBI agent, Robert Levison, he was captured in Iran while working for the CIA in 2007. And this is the same Deripaska who has serviced in Mueller's current investigation and who has recently sanctioned by the Trump administration. So, once again, we can see that Mueller is having problems. The whole thing's starting to fall apart around them. Because, as we can see, there is no Russian collusion, and this whole thing is completely made up. And when we start to dig deeper into these individuals, we can see that, well, they had contact with Russians. Actually, one agent who helped court Deripaska was Andrew McCabe. You know, he was the recently fired FBI director. So when we look at this, we can see that they have their own problems. We see that the Trump administration, they have cut all government funding for NASA's global warming program. And according to the Washington Examiner, the proposed carbon monitoring system would have used satellites to study signs of climate change at a cost of $10 million a year. However, the NASA-backed program is nowhere to be found in the federal spending deal signed last month, making it essentially grounded right now. And we can see right now, this has been stopped in the tracks, just like Trump has removed the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. And again, this was all set up by the deep state, the globalist, to push carbon tax on every single person. This was all being done for the New World Order, and this was all part of their agenda. And we can see that this is being completely stopped, just like the TPP and the rest. We see that the Soros Open Society Foundation, well, they have closed their operations in Hungary. And remember, the Hungary president was basically going after Soros. And we see right now that things are not going well for George Soros. We see the deep state is up to their old tricks once again, and they're trying to push their agenda in North Korea. Now remember, the deep state still has pockets of agents all over the place. And they are going to continually push their agenda. Remember, they never think that they're out of the game. They always try to meet their goal. They're going to continually push, and they're not going to stop. Right now, North Korea has canceled talks with South Korea temporarily, and they're threatening to walk away from the talks with the U.S. over the joint U.S.-Korea military drills. This is according to South Korea. Now, once again, South Korea, the Yonhap News, which is owned by the deep state, the control the corporate media, they continually put out stories, and they've been doing this in the past, to push the agenda of the deep state. And we can see right now that everything was going very smoothly, but what the deep state is doing right now, they are doing whatever they possibly can to stop the summit between Trump and Kim Jong-un. And I wouldn't be surprised if they push a false flag. I wouldn't be surprised if they ramp this up and try to push their agenda as hard as they possibly can, because they do not want this summit to happen whatsoever. And they're going to continually push. In the Middle East, we understand that Lebanon had their elections, and it didn't go well for the U.S. They're losing control there. We see Iraq has had their elections, and once again, the Iraqi people are voting away from what the U.S. wants. And this individual, who the Iraqi people are voting for, he does not like the U.S. He wants the U.S. troops out of Iraq. He says the U.S. is the biggest threat to Iraq's security. So already what we're seeing here is the deep state, they are losing their hold on Iraq. They're losing their hold on Lebanon. They're losing their hold on Syria. And they're losing their hold on Libya. Every single place where they invaded and had regime change, they are losing control over all of it. And we see right now Trump pretty much nixed the Iranian deal, and this is going to cause chaos in the region, no doubt about it. And of course it's going to cause chaos in the region because everyone is scrambling, especially the deep state operatives and those people who are caught up in collusion and corruption and things like that. We see the U.S. is now imposing new sanctions on the Iranian bank. This is coming from the Department of the Treasury. Now remember, the Iranian bank, they're really not part of the private Western central banking system. And what we're seeing here is that they are trying to do whatever they possibly can to push the deep state into doing something else in this area. And they want them to play their hand. Now, Iran is looking towards the EU to make up for the U.S. withdrawal. And what that really means is, listen, what they were paying us before, we want you to pay us now to continue with the slush fund, to keep us quiet and things like that. So the European nations, they might go for this. They might cough up the money. We'll have to wait to see. And we'll have to see what they do. Now, with all these sanctions being pushed on Iran, where do you think Iran is going to look right now? They're going to look away from U.S., Europe, and they're going to look towards Russia and China. Now, again, is this part of the plan? Because, again, China and Iran, they have a very good working relationship. So does Russia and Iran. And we know that China has the petro-yuan. Iran has quite a bit of oil. They do a lot of trading with China. Now it looks like Iran might dump the euro, already dumped the US dollar, and move right into the petro-yuan. And we can see right now, this would allow Iran to open their doors for business with China completely, have the One Belt, One Road move right in, and have the train move through Iran, maybe go into Syria, up through Turkey, out to Europe, because this is the plan right now. And we see at this point that everything is starting to move in that direction. Again, this is not just about getting those individuals who are corrupt, who need to be arrested and put in jail. This is also about securing these nations. Now, it's going to get ugly before it gets a lot better. Look what happened in North Korea. During the negotiations, which no one thought was happening, all you heard was war, nuclear weapons. They had experts on the corporate media saying how North Korea was going to attack at any moment and we're going to have World War III. You had McMaster's saying we have the plan and we're going to lose this many soldiers when we invade North Korea. All of it didn't happen. And the deep state, they're trying once again in North Korea. It's a come full circle where they're trying to stop the peace deal. Remember, they don't want peace. They want war. And I would expect to see, again, a false flag in North Korea and maybe even some type of false flag with the Iranian nuclear deal to say that Iran did something to try to get us into war. I mean, this is what these people are trying to do. They want a war. They've been pushing for a war. Remember, they're tied into the central banks. The central banks are the financiers of the deep state. They need a war. They need an event to switch us to their new system. And it looks like they're having trouble getting this war started. And they're being shut down in every area. We see France is moving closer to Russia right now. The French authorities, they're ready to hold discussions on lifting the sanctions against Russia. The European nations are moving away from the U.S., no longer listening to the U.S. and saying, you know something, maybe we will not have sanctions against Russia. Now, think about what's happening here. We have Iran moving to China and Russia. We have the European nations saying, you know something, maybe we should look at Russia and drop the sanctions. Maybe we should have talks. Germany's doing it right now. Is this part of the plan to break away from the deep state and have Europe separate themselves from the deep state? Now, there are still deep state operatives within these European countries, but if the countries start to look towards Russia and China, this completes the economic situation where the Fed no longer and the deep state no longer have control over them. And if they remove sanctions from Russia, guess what? They can do business with Russia. And they can trade in other currencies. Now, is this part of it where the Iranian deal was dropped by Trump? The European nations are looking to move away, and German Prime Minister Merkel said, listen, we can't depend on the U.S. to protect us anymore, looking at Russia and China, and it looks like other European nations are looking in that direction. Is this the transition happening right in front of our faces, where they're moving away from the deep state control, from the central bank control? Because remember, Russia controls their central bank. They kicked the private Western central bankers out of their country. They paid off their debt. This is why the central bankers hate them. We see out in Israel, in Palestine, in the Gaza area, things are not going well whatsoever. Amnesty International has called on Israel's crackdown deplorable. The UN has called for an end to the Israeli military disproportionate use of force. The U.S. right now has blocked a request for an independent Gaza inquiry at the UN. No further details were released. And again, there's a lot of force being used on these individuals. People are being killed. And of course, Nikki Haley, who's part of the deep state. Yes, Netanyahu, part of the deep state. They're all working together here. And we see that she was in the United Nations Security Council meetings. And she's saying that, listen, Israel has nothing to do with this. This has to do with Hamas. And she's looking the other way. And she actually walked out when the Palestinian representative started to speak. And again, she is part of the deep state. You can see where she takes her orders from. And again, they're pushing their agenda using what has happened here. And I know Trump says he has a deal for the Palestinians, and let's see what that turns out to be. And we can see that the deep state, they're showing their true colors. They're showing what they really do out in the open to everybody, even though the corporate media is not out there reporting on any of this, but they're pushing their agenda. And you can just see from individuals who's part of the deep state and who is not part of the deep state. And we know Nikki Haley is, and she needs to be removed just like McMaster's. And you can see with Trump, he removes certain individuals. Now, what's very interesting is that Trump didn't attend the U.S. Embassy opening. Now, I know Melania, she was having an operation, but they knew exactly the dates of all of this. They knew exactly what was going on, and they could have rescheduled, but we can see that he didn't attend it whatsoever. And I know people are saying that he's part of this whole thing, which I still don't believe. I think he's using all of this to push a certain agenda and basically push the deep state out into the open, show their true colors, and we're going to see other things happen. Just like he did with North Korea, I think other plans are in the works right now. We see out in Syria right now in Homs, the same thing that we saw in other areas. They have hundreds of buses. They are filled with thousands of rebels and their family members, and they are being removed from Syria. It is game over in Syria, but the deep state is not going to give up. They're going to continually push their agenda. We can see with Q, he's dropping more intel. He, she, the group of people, dropping more intel. We have Post 1359, May 14th, dropped a lot of links, and Q said, all for a LARP. Attacks will only intensify. Ask yourself why. So Q compiled a list of links here showing the increasing number of attacks against the conspiracy theory that is QAnon. And we can see right now that all of this is out in the open where there's a battle going on. to shut QAnon down, to say that he's fake, phony, and false. And I don't believe so, because all the research and then everything is that's being researched in Q, it's turning out to be true. Now, is everything perfect? No. Certain things happen at different times. No one's saying any type of date saying it's going to happen on this day. All Q is saying is future proves past. Things in the future will prove everything that Q is saying in the past. And Q knows, and this is why he's dropping all these links, that there's going to be a lot of new stories coming out that are going to say that Q is fake, phony, and false. They're going to try to discredit this group, this individual, and it's not going to stop. You're going to see attack after attack after attack. Now, Q also put up a post where there's a billboard, and it says, Q, do you know Q? Where we go one, we go all. And it is out there, and don't get caught up on this billboard, because this billboard, it looks like it's from a marketing firm, and they want your email, they want to spam you, they want to basically have you purchase domain names and websites. Q is just showing you all of this to show you that there is a billboard up there. Look at Q, do you know Q? But don't get caught up in this company that's pushing this. It's a complete ripoff, and you really shouldn't be looking at that whatsoever. I think he was just using it as the billboard of, Q, and look, everyone can see this now. Now, Q has also dropped some more breadcrumbs here. There was a American flag with fire engines. It said image search for fire truck engine. Letter common in front of the number of the fire engine. Post number 74. Coincidence. U.S. flag post castle lock. And there was a previous post with American flag with castle lock. And he pointed this as a reference. Comms understood. And when you look at this, you can see that this is a confirmation that the fire engine says Q74 on one of the fire trucks holding Old Glory at Andrews Air Force Base for return of the 3 American hostages from North Korea. Q posted number 74 was a big one with a reference to freedom. The flag pick with Castle Lock was next post believed to mean White House is now secure. File name freedom. So when you look at this, you can see this is a confirmation that Q is real. And this is very interesting. Q also dropped another post, 362, 363, where he posted something about Navy SEAL Eric Prince. And it said, what does Eric Prince know about the actual content on Wiener's laptop? I heard it's damning. And he went on to say, who knows where the bodies are buried? Riri drops, who knows where? Rudy does. Now comes the pain. Now, this is very interesting with now here comes the pain, because he did drop another post. This is the Punisher. It was the symbol of the Punisher on post 1365 on May 14th. And to understand what he means by the Punisher, and now comes the pain, the Punisher is an Italian-American who fought the mob in New York City. Who is that? Rudy Giuliani. So Rudy is going to be bringing the pain. All this stuff of Rudy leaking all this up, this was all part of the plan. This was all part of the show. And this is why Q keeps saying, enjoy the show. Now, Q went on to say, and there was another post, 1366, and it says, Allison Mack, NXIVM, arrested, what date? When does a bird sing? Schneiderman resigns, what date? Coincidence? Eyes Wide Open, which was a movie by Stanley Kubrick. Who will be next? Watch New York City, watch California. Now, Mac was arrested on 4/20, and Q already confirmed to us that she was squealing, she was talking, she was giving a lot of names. New York Attorney General Schneiderman resigned on May 7th, giving that a 17-day delta amid sexual abuse allegations. And we see right now that he also, Q mentions Eyes Wide Open, and is a reference to the old Pizzagate investigation, where they talked about Pizzagate, and this was all on the chans long before the QAnon breadcrumbs that were being dropped today. And the name itself is a reference to Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, which famously features elites in mass performing in all kinds of like sex rituals and things like that. And one thing that Kubrick was trying to do with this film was reveal secrets about the cabal, to which he was privy as an elite artist. At a time when no one else really knew what was going on, he knew what was going on, and he was basically telling the world through his movies what this was all about. I mean, if you go and study the film The Shining, and you listen to what is being said there, the film mentions the gold standard and ending the Fed, talks about FDR, Woodrow Wilson, Fed bankers, and more. And all of this is in his films. And we see right now that a lot of this is happening. Now, I want to go back to North Korea for a second, because Q did drop something a while back about Pompeo is not the most senior official to have been to North Korea, where a former president was there just a short while ago before Pompeo. And basically, maybe back in the November timeframe, Barack Obama supposedly visited North Korea, and we don't know exactly what he was doing there. But again, we need to remember North Korea is used for drug running. North Korea is a major human trafficking site that moved kids from Asia through there. And we see that this is all part of the deep state, the cabal. And maybe they were trying to cover things up. Maybe they're trying to stop it. But this is what they were using North Korea for. And it had really nothing to do with nuclear weapons and things like that. It was part of their base of operations. The same thing with Iran. It has nothing to do with them developing a nuclear weapon and using it on different countries. This is about what they're doing with uranium, what they're using the slush funds for, human trafficking, and things like that. This is the deep state, what they use these countries for. And this is what is being done now, where Trump is moving in and trying to break up the criminal element in these countries, the deep state. And by doing this, yes, there's going to be a disturbance in the force. There's going to be a disturbance around the entire area, because the deep state, they know what's happening, and they're going to create a ruckus around the area. They're going to create distractions. They're going to try to create an event. They're going to try to bring us to war to stop what is happening, because they understand what he's trying to do. He knows all. They see all. And I'm talking about the Patriots. They know exactly what's going on. They're tracking all these individuals, and they're running around the world trying to keep their criminal activity together. But it's breaking apart, and it's going to look like it's getting a lot worse before it gets better, just like North Korea. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.